Hey, welcome! Today, we're going to dive deep into one of the most game-changing ideas from James Clear's incredible book, Atomic Habits. We're talking about the third law of behavior change. And trust me, it's a simple concept that can literally reshape your entire life. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You spend days, maybe even weeks, researching the perfect workout plan. You brainstorm 20 brilliant ideas for that side project. You read a stack of books on a new diet, but you never actually do a single push-up, write the first paragraph, or eat that healthy meal. It's that frustrating gap between having a great intention and actually taking action.
Now, the typical advice we always hear is, just try harder, or if you just need more willpower. But what if that's completely wrong? Atomic Habits makes a pretty bold claim. Trying to just power through with motivation is actually making things way harder than they need to be. The real answer lies in a totally different direction.
And here it is. This is the big idea we're digging into. The secret to finally sticking with good habits isn't about brute force. It's about smart design. It's all about reducing the friction in your life so that the right choice becomes the easiest choice.
Okay, so to really get how to make it easy, we've got to first understand a super important difference the book talks about. The difference between being in motion and actually taking action.
Let me tell you this fantastic story from the University of Florida. There's a film photography professor, Jerry Uelsman, who decides to run a little experiment. He wants to find out what really produces high-quality work. So, he splits his class right down the middle.
So, on one side of the room, you've got the quantity group. Their grade is all about volume. If they turn in 100 photos, they get an A, 90 photos a B, you get the idea. On the other side is the quality group. They only have to produce one single photo the entire semester. But to get an A, it has to be nearly perfect. So, who do you think took the better pictures?
You're not going to believe this. At the end of the semester, all the best photos, the most stunning, technically brilliant images came from the quantity group. While the quality group was busy speculating about what makes a great photo, the quantity group was out there just doing the work. They were shooting hundreds of photos, learning from their mistakes, and getting real-world practice. They were taking action.
And this story just perfectly highlights the difference. Motion is planning and strategizing. It feels super productive, right? But it doesn't actually get you a result. A lot of the time, it's just a sneaky form of procrastination. Action, on the other hand, is the behavior that actually delivers the outcome. It's doing the thing.
Now check out this graph, because it shows exactly how a habit is formed. Every single time you take action, every rep, you're basically paving a new pathway in your brain. At the beginning, it's a real struggle, like that messy part on the left. But with each repetition, you move along that line, until finally you cross what's called the habit line. That's when the behavior becomes automatic. It's not about time, it's about the number of reps you put in.
This idea of taking action leads us straight to a fundamental law of human nature. It's a principle that guides almost everything we do, even when we don't realize it. It's called the law of least effort. Basically, our brains are wired to be efficient. You could even say lazy.
And to see this law play out on a massive global scale, take a look at this map. It's from Jared Diamond's book, Guns, Germs, and Steel. He makes this fascinating point that continents are shaped differently. The Americas and Africa are oriented north-south, but Eurasia, it's mostly east-west. And this one little geographic detail changed the course of human history.
I mean, think about it. If you were a farmer back then in Eurasia, you could expand your crops 1,000 miles east or west, and you'd find pretty much the same climate, same amount of daylight, same seasons. It was easy. But try moving those same crops 1,000 miles north or south in the Americas. You're going to hit totally different climates. It's just a fact. You can't grow crops from Florida up in Canada. Moving east to west was simply the path of least resistance.
And that, right there, is the law of least effort in a nutshell. It's not some kind of moral failing. It's just how we're built. Our brains evolved to conserve energy, which means we will almost always, naturally, choose the option that requires the least amount of work.
I absolutely love this analogy from the book. We so often try to build a good habit by just trying to pump up our motivation, right? That's like trying to force water through a kinked-up garden hose. It takes a ton of effort and doesn't work very well. The smarter way? Just unkink the hose. Remove the friction so the good behavior can flow effortlessly.
Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but how do we actually do that? How do we unkink the hose in our own lives? Well, that brings us to maybe the most practical and powerful technique in the entire book.
So, let me tell you about the famous choreographer Twyla Tharp.
Every single morning, she has this intense 2-hour workout. But when asked about her habit, she says the ritual isn't the workout itself. The real ritual, the part that makes it all happen, is just walking outside her building and hailing a cab to the gym. Once that happens, the rest is practically automatic. That simple act of getting in the cab is what the book calls a decisive moment. Our days are full of these little forks in the road, and as you can see here, these tiny choices often determine whether you have a productive day or a lazy one. They're like entrance ramps to a highway. Once you're on one, you're pretty much going to follow it for a while.
And this is how we can win those decisive moments, with the 2-minute rule. It's simple. When you start a new habit, it has to take less than 2 minutes to do. So run a marathon becomes run a 5K, which scales down to walk 10 minutes, all the way down to put on your running shoes. The real goal isn't to do the whole workout. It's to master the art of just showing up. Make it so easy to start that you can't possibly say no.
Okay, but we can push this idea of making it easy even one step further. We can actually start to design our environment so that our good habits aren't just easy, they're practically inevitable.
Just look at some of these examples. These are powerful, one-time actions that automate your good behavior for the future. Buying a good mattress? You do it once and you sleep better for years. Setting up an automatic savings plan. One decision and you're saving money every single month without thinking about it. You're making one smart choice today that pays off again and again.
So what about the flip side? What about our bad habits? Well, we can use the exact same logic, just in reverse. We can invert the third law. Instead of making it easy, we make it difficult. Or, in some cases, you can even make a bad habit totally impossible.
This is probably my favorite story from the book. The famous author Victor Hugo had this massive deadline for his next novel, which would become The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and he was procrastinating like crazy. So what did he do? He had his assistant take all of his clothes and lock them away, leaving him with just a big shawl. With nothing to wear outside, he was literally forced to stay in his study and write. He made going out impossible.
What Victor Hugo did is a perfect example of something called a commitment device. It's a choice you make right now that puts up a wall between you and a bad habit later on. Think about it. Deleting social media apps off your phone, buying snacks in smaller packages, giving your friend your Netflix password and telling them to change it. You're just adding friction to make the wrong choice harder to make.
And really, that's what this all boils down to. Instead of trying to be a hero and relying on willpower, which we all know comes and goes, the better strategy is to become the architect of your own environment. So I'll leave you with this question. Take a look around your world, your home, your office, and ask yourself, how can I redesign this space so that the right choice is always the easiest choice?